Every yard matters. Welcome in to a special edition of the CHGO Bears Podcast. A bonus episode this week because we are going to be covering rookie minicamp later in the week. We're going to have an extra show at the end of the week, and we have a special series that we're starting here at CHGO, diving into some special teams. Yes, this is my selfish opportunity to talk special teams, which is why I'm here all by myself. But not really, because our special guest on the show is Bears special teams coordinator Richard Hightower, who's done a great job in the last 2 years with Bears special teams, kind of bringing them back. That was the one area they were already somewhat strong, but with all this roster turnover, they've taken it to the next level. They just used a draft pick on Tory Taylor, the punter, as well. So there's a lot to talk about here. And, of course, there's the new kickoff rules. So this is the first of a few special team-centric interviews that we're going to be doing here in the offseason, but very timely, of course, with the new kickoff rule and the Bears drafting Tory Taylor. Got a lot to discuss in this episode. And again, it's a little bit different because we're not live today, pre-recorded, but you can still interact in the comments. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Shoot the interview off to a Bears fan that you know. Ask them to subscribe. We greatly appreciate your support here at CHGO. And this is a fun interview. We're going to go into the weeds a little bit on what this new kickoff rule means, Devin Hester's impact on it, and Tory Taylor. He's already kind of, I feel like, developing this cult following, and he hasn't even kicked the ball yet for the Chicago Bears. And I think you're going to like what Coach Hightower had to say about drafting this kid out of Iowa, because it's very exciting for those of us that can appreciate special teams, which I hope you can too. Without further ado, let's jump right into the interview with Bears special teams coordinator Richard Hightower. All right, Coach Richard Hightower, been looking forward to this for a long time. I think, on our show, everyone kind of knows my background with special teams. They give me a hard time about it and all this. But so this is our opportunity to just do a whole thing on special teams. I'm pumped up for it. Thank you so much for jumping on with us.
No, thank you, Coach. I'm pumped up to do it as well. It's great to talk to you and great to talk some teams. Two special teams coaches talking ball. I mean, what can be better than that?
Yeah, I mean, it beats. I try to get in a question or two every week in the press conference, but we can go a little bit more in depth here. So I'm fired up about it. And I kind of want to start really with just your background. And, I feel like every special teams coach I've ever talked to, and even my own experience kind of, at the lower high school level, but maybe you don't necessarily go into being a special teamer when you're playing. You're probably starting more as I think in your case, you're a wide receiver, right? Or even if you get into coaching, some guys might start on offense, they'll start on defense, then they end up on special teams. So what was your moment either as a player or a coach where you kind of realize, all right, the special teams is really where I can get dialed in here and this is going to be my career?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, and when you start, you really never know where you're going to end up. Just really want to be around football. So starting out, I started out, I was coaching on defense. I was actually a defensive assistant or coaching assistant, and have coached on offense as well. Coached all three phases in the game, but I just felt like not only as a player when I was playing in college, but also as a coach, I just always really enjoyed special teams. And I don't know if it was because you got to deal with the whole team or you got to talk to a lot of different of your teammates, a lot of different teammates, but it was always that interaction, that personal interaction with the masses of the whole team. So that is what really drew me to it, and that's where I became drawn to it, is just the ability to communicate and develop and help, the whole roster. And what's so cool about here is when I get up in front of the team to talk to them about it here, it's not like I'm the only one I've ever saying it. Like Coach Eberflus is so dialed in when it comes to special teams. Ryan, he sees it that way as well, and it's great to be, at a place that Chicago values it. They always have, even before I was here. So it's been really cool. But when you got your GM, your head coach, you got all those guys backing it and talking about it in the meetings and talking about it with the players and actually putting their money where their mouth is too when it comes to players too. So Ryan and his staff have done a phenomenal job with that. So we're fortunate.
Yeah, and even just, last week or so, using a 4th-round pick on a punter, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a little bit later on in the interview, but that also speaks to, the commitment as an organization to special teams. And obviously they've done that kicker with Cairo Santos. I'm not sure how many people know this about you, but you are a walk-on at Texas. And so was Kyle Shanahan. And I know you guys, from those days of playing together, have had this friendship. You've coached a lot with him. Just how far back does this go with Kyle Shanahan, and how much of an impact has he had, in some of these stepping stones in your career?
Yeah, I mean, truly a great man and a great coach Kyle is. We, like you said, up into our earlier years in college of actually being in the trenches together, in the foxhole together, fighting to try to win games. That's where the love is developed. It's not when things are going well. It's when you go through things in adversity as a team or as a coach, So obviously it developed, back then with him as well as rest of my teammates. And then it's to coaching. Like I was already in the building at the Houston Texans is where I started as a marketing intern. And I really was working it's crazy because I was working a job outside of football for 6 months when I got done playing. And it just was eating at me. And I needed to be back around the game. So I went and interned for the Texans. So I took a significant pay cut, a marketing internship. Yeah, marketing internship because I just wanted to be back around it. So it didn't matter if it was football or not, and I just would take breaks during instead of taking a break during lunch, I would go and run video or go stuff playbooks or do something for the coaches. And then 2 years into it is when Kyle came. So I was really already there, and he just happened to come to the team that I was working for, and then I made the transition over to football. And really, it was like I don't even want to call it a quality control. It was like a coaching assistant, or basically like you can call it. It was it's almost like a secretary, like whatever you could do to get in the door. So that's kind of how it started, and love just blossomed from there. Learning everything I could learn, and obviously, he's a really good coach. His dad, he comes from a lineage of great coaching. So it's just so many things I've learned from him. And fortunate to, learn under someone like that.
So did you have, at that point, did you already have like sort of that love for special teams in your heart, or is that something that just sort of developed because, you get in the door just as a marketing intern, you're motivated to do anything? Like, was that somewhere where eventually they needed help there, so that's where you dove in? That's just kind of where the ball got rolling?
Yeah, I think I've always, Adam, had a love for special teams. And I think why is because that's what I played when I was in college. So I walked on to the University of Texas, as you know, because I went there on academic scholarship. But my chance to play was to play on special teams. So in high school, everybody's a star player or whatever if you make it to the college level. And not everybody starts on special teams. It kind of happens in the pros too. Everybody in the pros are, top notch on offense and defense, and then they may not start when they get here. So I've actually been through that experience myself on my own, and that's where I developed my love for it because that's where I got a chance to play the most. when I was in college. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough to start at Texas on offense or defense.
Well, that was the Mac Brown days, right? You know,
yeah.
lot of good team, a lot of good players, obviously. All right, so that's cool. I wanted to kind of establish the starting of all this for you, and now you 17 years in the NFL at this point. You're entering your third year as the Bears special teams coordinator, fourth overall with the team because you had that brief year back in 2016 with the Bears as well. And it's obvious to me, Coach, that you've earned the respect as one of these well-established special teams coordinators across the league. And I think that was evident in your involvement in this new kickoff rule that has passed. And Darren Rizzi, special teams coordinator at the Saints, John Fossil, special teams coordinator at the Cowboys, they were kind of front and center at the owners' meetings back at the end of March when I was there. Got a chance to talk to them a little bit about all this, but I know you were involved too. So I've been dying to get you on to kind of talk about the background of this rule, why it's so important. Can you give me an idea of like how far back these discussions or research goes to, because I imagine this had to be sort of a tough sell and a gradual sell to kind of get this old school mindset of what the kickoff always has been compared to this thing that's going to look very different to the casual fan when we get to games this fall.
Yeah. So there's a working committee or a working group, as you mentioned, that consists of myself, Darren Rizzi, and Coach Fossil. And we get together and we discuss ideas, with the competition committee, with the league office, health and safety, the owners, all of that happens not only at the owners meeting, but it's happened every year. In fact, it's been happening for years in the NFL. I was just fortunate to be a part of it this year, and I did attend the owners meeting, so I was there in the room when they voted. So it like you said, when you do something as different as this is, not everybody there is going to be on board to begin with, and there's going to be a lot of different ideas, not only amongst the whole league, but even amongst our own special teams coaching group. So the 29 other coordinators have involvement as well. Rizzi and I and John Fossil just happen to be the ones that were chosen to talk to the competition committee, but everybody's involved. So all 29 other coordinators and their assistants, and we all discussed different ideas, facilitating different ways to come up to make this thing like one of the best that has ever been is our goal. So I think our first meetings were, it's been going on years, Adam, but we met with the competition committee the first time at the Combine. Was the first time we sat in front of the competition committee, but there were Zoom meetings, there were all kind of meetings. And in fact, the special teams coaches, we always meet even on Zoom a lot. It's a really closely knit group. So we do that 3 or 4 times a year.
So, it's in some ways it's actually kind of hard to explain what this rule is. At the sheet the NFL put out with like all the details was like over a page and a half. It might have been more than that. But like the way the crux of it is player safety combined with getting more returns. And those two things can kind of work against each other with the way that the kickoff rule has been, with this huge running head start, bigger collisions. And that's why we've sort of seen kickoffs phased out with more and more touchbacks to prevent injuries. And the way I always like to explain it and the way we teach it at Carmel is there's a sprint zone on a kickoff cover, there's an avoid zone, and then there's your attack zone where you're trying to make the tackle. Well, this is kind of just taking that sprint zone out of it, where you're getting that speed downfield, and you're kind of just starting at that point where you got to avoid the block and go attack the player and make the play. So that's like the easiest way that I can like kind of lay it out there for the fans that might not be totally up to speed with what this rule is. But still, taking that yardage out and lining these guys up so far up on the field, I'm getting fired up here talking about this. I just knocked my microphone over.
I like it.
Like that just visually, it's like a tough sell, I feel like. But when you like conceptualize the point of it, it makes total sense. But I just feel like this had to be part of the toughest sell. It's just how these teams are lining up on the field.
No, you're exactly right. And in fact, the way you coached kickoff at Carmel is the same way we coached it before this rule is coming in, because those are the zones that you have to go through. Those are the phases of kickoff. So the way we see it is every offseason, something changes with special teams. And this year is the kickoff, and all the changes may not be as big or as talked about as this one, but all of them, every offseason, there's always a change. Like whether it was like the fair catch last year on the kickoff, or in 2018 there were changes to the kickoff, like you're saying. But in the most recent time now, is exactly what you're saying is what the idea of it is to reduce the speed and space. It takes into account the reduction of speed and space, all right, in an effort to make it a healthier play and a more entertaining play, and to get even more returns, but do that in a more confined space, where you don't have guys running at high speed, because the athletes are bigger, faster, stronger now than they've ever been. I mean, look at the tight ends are running what the receivers used to run now at the combine, So it's an effort to reduce the space and make the play extremely entertaining. More returns, what this city is known for, Yeah. This city made the kickoff famous, i.e. our man going into the hall this year. So
I wanted to bring that up, Coach, because Rich McKay, chairman of the competition committee, and I think Coach Fossil and Coach Rizzi, I couldn't believe how much Devin Hester's name came up down there in Orlando when this got passed. And maybe there's just some symmetry there with Hester going into the Hall of Fame this summer. But just it feels like there's been a void in, fun returns in the game. And to me, it's always been an exciting play, and no city knows that better than Chicago because Devin Hester was here. Just how much I heard his name came up a bunch in the public comments afterwards. When you guys are having these conversations behind the scenes, like how much did Hester's name came up?
Yeah, it came up. It came up because he and those Chicago Bear teams really put the kickoff on the map, and the kickoff return on the map. So it definitely came up, and everyone across the NFL understands and has the utmost respect for Devin. And it's great that in a year that we're talking about bringing more returns into the game, and it's a different type of play than what we're used to seeing. It's not our old kickoff. We all know that, so it's going to take some time. There's going to be some getting used to it. But the good thing is that you're going to get more plays, and a person like Devin, at least what he did for the game, is still being honored, and it's still a piece of our game, because it's a huge fabric of our game. I mean, they call it football. So you got to kick the ball off. You know what I mean? You got to kick it off. Just like basketball, a tip off. You know what I mean? The first pitch. We talked about that before. So he comes up, and those guys got a ton of respect for him.
Yeah, it's always a good way to put it, because when my kids ask me like what part of the game I'm coaching when they're there, I'm like, well, okay, whenever the ball gets kicked, that's the part, and that's still part of the game of football, believe it or not. So a couple numbers I wanted to share, because this was all shared in the press conferences after the rule got passed in Orlando. So what's cool about this, honestly, Coach, is like I feel like there's a huge unknown. Like a lot of these numbers are just sort of a projection, and no one really knows how this is going to play out, which I think makes it extremely fun this season. But the expectation is that the average starting field position will bump from what was last year, I believe, the 25.2 yard line to somewhere just short of the 30. And so someone might go, well, does that really make a difference? Is that worth this drastic change? But I think the larger impact that the NFL is trying to get across is the increase in variance. So even if the average starting position only changes 4 yards or whatever it ends up being, you're probably going to see way more kicks return to the plus 40, and you're probably going to see a bunch of kicks get pinned back at the 10 more than has been, just because you're going to see more variance. And the point of all that is if you can have a safer play that creates more variance, you're just making the game more exciting.
Yeah, no question. And it's spoken like a true coach. By the way, well done. Because guess what? We only had 22% returns last year. And nobody wants a ceremonial play, you know? So when you take a look at the play now, you know, it's going to be at least double that, you know, and anything higher than that is a win as well. But doubling it is a win, you know. In the XFL model, which this is a NFL hybrid kickoff model, is totally different than the XFL. There are some similarities, but this is different, and it provides a little bit more of flexibility for the players and the coaches when it comes to them using their techniques on the field and us being able to scheme to create returns. But they had a 90% return rate. So, like, and what we liked about that and what was so cool about, like, working with guys like Rich McKay and Troy Vincent and Commissioner Goodell is they saw the vision and they saw the variance that you're talking about. Because when you look at the XFL model, they had a really good flow of their returns. Some of them were inside the 20. A good portion of them were out to the 30. A good portion were out to the 50. They had a touchdown or two. You know, so there was so much variance in there that it affected field position, which anytime you affect field position, it affects scoring, even if it's 5 yards, because this is a game of inches. So, I mean, it's gonna affect the way teams call games, which is good.
So, I feel like I've gotten to know you pretty well these last couple of years since you've been back here in Chicago. I'm still working on it with Flus a little bit, but from what I know about Coach Flus, I'm guessing that the wheels inside his coaching brain just started spinning right away once this thing was official, and probably even before that. I can only imagine the conversations that you two have had to kind of game plan for all this, and you're going to keep most of that secret, obviously, because it all goes to scheme in this upcoming season. But just how much have you two been already – you almost got to start from scratch on some of this, not only in terms of strategy about the types of kicks – hang time just doesn't matter as much anymore, right, Coach?
Right.
You're talking different bodies potentially on the field. I mean, it's almost like a brand new phase of special teams.
Yeah, and that's what's been super exciting. And to have Coach Flus by my side, and to be so involved with it, like he's in the meetings, he has ideas. We've gotten together, we've discussed several different strategies. It's so cool to see how his wheels turn and how his brain works when it comes to, you know, covering kicks and it being a defensive play, and just all the rules and the fundamentals and the rudiments of defense. In fact, we were talking about it just before you and I got on. So it's been awesome, like, to have him, and he's always involved when it comes to teams. But, like, we're super excited about this. Like you said, it's going to affect roster construction, the type of kick, the type of technique, because the guy's 5 yards, you know, away from you. You know, it's going to be a lot different. But what we're so excited about, and what our players are so excited about, and our organization is so excited about, is that we have the honor and the privilege to be one of the first teams, along with the Texans in the Hall of Fame game, to see this in a live form of fashion. So that's what we are so excited about and what we're working towards, you know, every time we work on kickoff or kickoff return. But it's been different.
Yeah, no, that's going to be cool because that'll be the first time we're going to see it at the Hall of Fame game. I imagine one of the people inside that building most excited would be Velus Jones Jr.
Yeah, he's definitely excited. He's definitely excited, as are all our other players. But yeah, he's definitely excited. And Khalil is excited because, Khalil's done that in the past, been a really good kickoff returner in the past. And really the guys covering kicks, some of our newer guys, they're intrigued by it. So Amon's intrigued by it, which was a great signing by Ryan and his crew. Jonathan Owens, like these guys are smart guys that love football. And then obviously some of our guys that have been here like Blackwell and Jalen Jones. It's just so many questions coming up about it. And we've done it a lot of different ways in terms of approaching the way we study it. So to give you a peek behind the curtain, like we always show techniques of, not anything that's strategically anybody else would know in terms of like a button press technique or, an avoid technique, which you referred to earlier. But we've shown that with NFL film, and we showed that with XFL film as well. So they've gotten a chance to study that league and our league. And we've put all those cut-ups on there for them, and they've come with ideas and questions and game plans of their own. So this has been like a rejuvenation for everyone. It's been kind of cool.
Yep. And I can't wait to see what it all looks like, Coach. I do want to switch gears a little bit here. You were talking about field position. We're calling this our Every Yard Matters series here on CHGOs. We talk some special teams. This is the shirts we wear at Carmel for our special teams crew.
Every yard matters.
I'll have to get you one, Coach. But in that light, the Tory Taylor selection, take me through it here, because I think, the immediate reaction anytime you see a kicker, punter drafted, anywhere in the top 4 rounds of the NFL draft, there's always a little bit of, whoa, really? But I'm guessing that you were pretty fired up, because anybody who watched Tory Taylor at Iowa knows, in terms of electricity from a punter, this guy definitely has it. So what was that like inside the building as you're getting kind of closer and closer to that pick? I don't know, if how much you knew it was a possibility that it might be coming, but when just kind of take me through the selection and how excited you were.
Yeah, I mean, I was super excited as our whole draft room was, as Ryan was, as Coach was. What's really cool is that our draft room, there's so much preparation that's done by Ryan and his crew, and obviously the coaches are involved as well, but they do so much work on the road. Like when we're in season, and the fire and the passion in that room when Tory was drafted was just unbelievable, a resounding support. And just because, like your shirt, every yard matters. And if you really know a lot about football, or even if you know a little bit about football, you have to know a ton, but every yard matters. So to get a guy that could be a weapon for us in this phase of the game is just really, really cool. And for those that thought that, oh my goodness, a punter in the 4th round, now that the dust has settled and the text messages have started between special teams coaches and coordinators, Ryan Poles and his staff did a hell of a job with those mock drafts and being on top of all that stuff, because there was no way he was getting to the 5th round. We got angry coaches on other teams saying, I can't believe you guys took him you can't believe that we didn't think you were going to do that. We didn't think you were going to, in a good way. We didn't suspect you guys. We got it wrong, and you guys got it right. So that's cool when you hear your peers say stuff like that. And kudos to Ryan and his staff, because he wouldn't have lasted to the back end of the 4th, and definitely would have been gone in the 5th. I've got that confirmation from 3 teams already.
That's awesome. I'm sure you're not going to share those teams, but probably some fun text messages behind the scenes with some bragging rights on that one.
Yeah, the kudos goes to Ryan and his staff, man. They were on top of it.
So what I think is cool about Tory's, some of his college stats, in some ways it's almost impossible, because we always talk about inside the 20-yard line, right? So 30 of those punts last season, but he had 23 punts land inside the 13. So not just the 20, but inside the 13. And if you kind of put it in a percentage of his total punts for the year, and this was just 1 year of his career at Iowa, but over a quarter of his punts landed inside of 13. And yet he still led the nation in punts over 50 yards. So he's really bringing the extreme on both ends where he can boom it, but he also, in terms of placement, it's kind of like those two stats almost work against each other in terms of average, and yet he's still his 46.2 yard career average is the highest in Big Ten history, despite the fact that how many times he was trying to pin it inside the 10-yard line.
Yeah, it's really I haven't seen, a player like this before. And it's what you're saying is exactly right. Those two usually fight against each other. Usually you're good at one and not really good at the other. But this kid is, I think Ryan may have even referred to it publicly, but we talked about it. This kid having the right club in his bag, like he can drop them wherever he needs to drop them. And again, all of those inside the 13 is going to make people. It's going to make it very hard for people to score, especially with a great defensive minded head coach that we have. So it's just gonna make it harder to play. It's gonna be more noise in our stadium, backed up for fans to make. And again, this kid is obviously a darn good player. I mean, he's broken records are made to be broken, but when you start breaking records that have been around 80 plus years, like it's something to be said for that. This is not your everyday normal punter that comes out that gets drafted every day. I mean, and there were guys drafted last year in the fourth round. Stout was drafted last year in the fourth round, but I haven't, me personally, I haven't seen, after studying a lot of these punters, I haven't seen a guy like this. Now, is he a rookie? Is he still going to have some growing pains, just like any quarterback, any wide receiver, any defensive back that comes in the game? Yeah. Is he everything will be perfect? No. But does he have a skill set that most people in the world don't have? Yes, he does. And it's a dangerous skill set.
I know this kind of applies to every punter when they go from college to the pros. Obviously, there's just the get off time and getting that ball up in the air, but because everything's faster in the NFL, his style too, I think that'll be a little bit of an adjustment. But just obviously, if that was a big concern, you wouldn't have drafted him. But just what about his game makes you feel like that transition is going to go pretty easy for him?
Yeah. So first of all, we always look at the person and how much they love the game of football. And this kid loves to punt the ball. He loves football. And we also look at the production and we look at the type of person he is, teammate. So all of those boxes were checked, like from the get-go with this kid. And then when you talk about the actual production and the ways that he can produce, whether it's getting the ball off fast, which he has a really good get off time. What does that mean? That means that people are less likely to rush your punts. They may still rush, but if they know they're not going to get there, it's harder. So what does that mean for him? Now he gets to mold the ball, catch it, do what he does with it, and now he has a better chance to be more accurate with his punt. So all of those things, there will be a little adjustment for him in some areas, just like every player. But in all, yeah, we were extremely satisfied with him and very excited to get him. And again, one of the best punters I've ever seen, and I've been doing this 17 years, so he might as well be the best that I've ever seen. And I think Ryan may have said that too. But this dude is a really good player. And obviously the college game is different. They release at the line of scrimmage versus what we do in the pros. Only our two end men on the line of scrimmage can release. But you want to talk about a guy that has a lot of different clubs in his bag and he can help you backed up. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen very often. So this kid is going to be a weapon for us, and we're excited as hell about him. And any fan that's not excited about him, they got to do a little bit more diving into it, just like anybody does,
All right, I'll let my co-host Mark Carmen know that right away, Coach. Because we've been battling it out already on the show a little bit, so he can hear it from you now. What I love, though, hearing, first of all, I just loved hearing that Caleb Williams was immediately reaching out to all the draft picks and additions to the team. But then when he reaches out to Tory Taylor, welcome to the team, but you're not going to be punting here very much. I'm sure you guys had to have a little bit of a laugh about that.
Oh, yeah, it was funny. I hope we're not punting as much as Tory did in college, and that's not a slight to anybody else.
Like a lot.
Yeah, he punted a whole bunch, okay? More than he punted last year more than most people punt in 3 or 4 years of punting. So I think Caleb's comment is correct in terms of it'd be punting as much or too much. I don't know what the exact comment was. And yeah, we want to score touchdowns every time. Just like every kickoff return they kick to us, we want to score a touchdown every time. But that's not the case. So the fact that our organization is able to have foresight and look at all of it, not to say we're going to punt all the time, but when you do punt, we have a weapon. When you do go out on offense, we have weapons. When we go out on defense, we have weapons. When we cover kicks, we have weapons. Chicago Bears are coming in every phase of the game, and that's what we want to do. We want to build an organization where we got a problem for you in every phase of the game. And it just happened that the draft fell the way it fell. But I love Caleb's text. That was funny as heck.
Well, that excitement about, the weapons across the board is a great way to kind of wrap this conversation up. I do want to ask you one more question, though, to kind of bring in the conversation full circle back to your coaching. You got a chance to be the head coach at the East-West Shrine game this year. I'm sure like any coach, you have aspirations of being a head coach at some point in the NFL. I feel like I'm banging the drum every year trying to for the fight for special teams coordinators to get more looks as head coaches because of what you were talking about earlier, just the involvement in the whole roster. I always like to say, in terms of in-game thinking ahead, special teams coordinators have to do that second to the head coach, really, if you think about it, because every part of special teams is connected to either what's happening on offense or defense. And so just what was that experience like for you, getting that opportunity? I understand that like those college all-star games is much about prospects and scouting and all that. But just that opportunity for you and what you gained out of it, what you learned from it.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, like I'm very appreciative to the McCaskey family and to Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus for putting my name in contention for that, or putting my name in front of the NFL with that. And then the NFL votes on it and your peers vote on it. So I'm very humbled and honored, to be selected to do that. And to have Coach Flus's support and everybody's support here. Coach Flus always talks to me about those different types of things. And he's one coach that believes in developing his coaches and believes in making the person better. I think that could be said I know that could be said for Kevin Warren as well, because what they're focusing on is making you individually better, which in turn makes our whole organization better. And I have aspirations of becoming a head coach one day, but if it doesn't happen, I am happy and I do love my job. Like I love developing young men, helping the football team, helping the offense and helping the defense. But if that's God's plan and I'm lucky enough to do it, Coach, I would love to do it. It's just that I get so much exposure from being around Coach Flus and us being on the headset together. A lot of people may not know that about special teams coordinators. So you're on the headset with, the head coach here. Every place is different, but I'm on the headset with him the whole time, along with our guys in research, our analytics guys that are on the headset, that we're all on the headset discussing in-game situations. Myself, Coach Harry, and Coach is phenomenal, hitting those buttons, going, talking to the offense, talking to the defense. So I've learned so much just watching him. I've learned so much just watching him And him being so open with teaching me, it'd be really cool to pay it back, to him, and getting that done one day and doing a good job at it. I know he would be proud if I ever get that opportunity. It's nothing like having a support of people that you work with and you work for. It just makes me want to do my job, so much more for him, and then whatever happens after that, it happens. I don't really, I don't spend much time thinking about it, but I'd be lying if I didn't say, hey, I wouldn't love the opportunity to do such. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think someday you will get that opportunity. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But of course, I'm sure the Bears don't want to lose you anytime soon either. Hey, it should be fun this season. You talking about weapons across the board, offense, defense, and now you can even say it at punter, which is, I feel like, the main word that's been used with Tory Taylor. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Coach, I appreciate your time today. It's been a lot of fun to kind of dive into the nuts and bolts of special teams. And I'll see you this weekend at Rookie Minicamp.
Yeah, Adam, I can't wait to see you. And again, man, this has been awesome. I appreciate you having me on, man. God do a hell of a job, and keep up the good work, man. I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
All right, thanks, Coach. All right, thanks again to Coach Hightower for jumping on with us with a special interview, extended interview, a conversation with Bears coaches and especially coordinators that you don't usually get. So I hope everybody greatly appreciated that. And thanks to the Bears for facilitating that interview as well. Man, I mean, that's high praise for Tory Taylor, the Bears' new punter. And you could tell, I think just in general, even though this was a special teams conversation, when you hear Coach Hightower talk about just sort of where this roster's at, where they have weapons all across the board now, hearing the excitement in his voice, you kind of just feel that things are turning here a little bit at Hallis Hall. And, as far as the off seasons go, it should be a fun off season to continue to follow, which is what we're going to be doing here at CHGO. And while everyone's going to be really excited about seeing Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze out there this weekend at Rookie Minicamp, I, of course, will be excited about seeing Tory Taylor. Really all of them, and we're going to have you covered here, which is why we have the special episode today on CHGO, because we're going to go all the way to Saturday this week with our episodes to make sure we are covered Friday, Saturday at Hallis Hall. All the coverage you need from Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, the entire rookie class getting out there. There'll be a bunch of tryout players as well, the undrafted rookies. It's always a fun weekend. And even though it can get a little overblown with what actually happens on the field, it is the first time you get to see these guys in a Bears uniform, in a Bears helmet, practice jersey, and all that. So it should be an exciting weekend at Hallis Hall. We're going to have you covered all week long. And, of course, we'll be back tomorrow with live shows, noon every day the rest of this week. And rumor has it the schedule might be coming out too. So if and when that happens, we'll have a schedule release show special as well for you. So it's all coming in a very exciting week here at CHGO. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at CHGO_Bears as well. It's going to do it for us today. I'm Adam Hoge. Thanks again to Coach Richard Hightower for joining us. We'll talk to you again tomorrow at noon.
We all silly like the mayor.